Hi, everybody. Welcome to Work Taste Podcast. I'm here with the incomparable, the legendary, the man himself, Michael Martin, formerly of I Wrestled a Bear Once. I mean, I'm sure you'll always be part of I Wrestled a Bear Once no matter what. I mean, you're like the longest running bass player, but you're also in Never Rest and Phantom Figures, correct?
Yes.
Hell yeah. So Never Rest is your new band that you're in. I know Phantom Figures was kind of like a side project that you're working with people that are a little bit out of state and stuff like that. But let's talk about Never Rest since we got
Okay.
people. Sorry, my co-host is a T-Rex and it talks, apparently. I can't control it. It's battery powered. So I just figured I'd give him. He's got questions. I got questions. Let's talk about Never Rest, Michael.
Sweet. Let's do it. Never Rest is so I don't know. Whenever the pandemic hit, that's whenever we were doing like Phantom Figure stuff because me and one of my homies that we used to be in a band called Surrounded by Monsters, and whenever the pandemic hit, we hadn't really talked for in a while. We haven't really done anything on our own, and whenever I originally joined Surrounded by Monsters, that they're like a North Texas band, kind of IWabo-y weird stuff.
Yeah.
But I was doing vocal stuff at the time. And, like when I joined that band, they were like, we really just want another guitarist and a bass player. And so I had a bass. I had my roommate at the time owed me for rent like 2 months in a row. And he had a bass and he was like, take the bass, take my practice cab. And so when I met my friend Lee, we've kind of started Surrounded by Monsters together, he was just like, I need a bass player. I don't need a vocalist. I need a bass player. And I was like, okay. So Phantom Figures was pretty much like during the pandemic, we were sitting around bored and I hit up the guitarist that was in the band with that band with me. And I was like, hey, let's do what we originally planned. Let's write some music and I'll do the vocals, like, because that's kind of how we originally intended, to do it, but we joined Surrounded by Monsters. So we started working on that, but we kind of did that the under the idea that we live in different cities. He lives in North Texas, I live in Austin. It's like 3.5 hours. And he's only a guitarist, I'm only a vocalist, and we did all the music ourselves. So we were just like, we'll play it if it's ever demanded. You know what I mean? But we have full-time jobs. We're both married. We both have stuff going on. And so eventually, whenever I moved down to Austin in 2020, uh, just this year, just from going to shows, just from like being a part of the scene, I kept running into my friend Ramy, and we'd always talk about this and that. And we found out we had mutual friends, just on Facebook and certain groups and just from
Yeah.
going to shows and stuff. And
Like common ground.
yeah, so eventually we would hang out every time I saw him at a show or whatever, grab a beer. And then I saw on his Facebook, he was like, who wants to do vocals? And I was like, I'm pretty busy, but like I have been trying to get into vocal stuff. I did an EP, and he's like, well, come jam. And I was like, okay, I'll come jam, but I'm real busy. I don't think I want to join a band at this point. And he's like, well, jamming won't hurt you. And I'm like, okay. So I come over to their jam spot. I jam through like a couple songs that I'd been listening to. And then they were like, hey, you want to join the band? And I was like, yes. so so it's the type of thing where, I didn't, it's like I'm real busy. I'm married, I work, I've got my own podcast going on, and I would like to say that I stream, but I haven't been able to all year because of these reasons. But yes, I did join a band called Never Rest, and we mainly been playing in Austin, but we've played like in the Dallas Fort Worth area. We have a few shows over there booked for the remainder of the year. We're doing like a run that's like San Marcos and Lubbock and stuff like that. So we are working on new songs right now too. They should be done by the first of the year. So
Oh yeah. So do you think that it was easy for you to agree to something like that? Because I mean, I'm a vocalist, and I know that if somebody asked me to learn all the bass to like all a band's set lists, it's kind of a steep hill. But if
mhm.
someone asks you to be a vocalist, I'm a vocalist. I'm kind of just like, yeah, that's kind of cool. Be in a band, be in front of an audience. Do you find that if they were to ask you to be bass player compared to vocalist, would you have been a little more like, I'm too busy, dog?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that being the bass player for so long. So okay, so the thing is like I'm telling you earlier, like I became a bass player because one of my homies that I met was like, "Oh, we're looking for a bass player." And I'm like, "Well, I was like trying to be a vocalist." And they were like, "Well, think about it." And then my friend, screwed me over on rent 2 months in a row and he's like, "Here's a bass." And then I was kind of like, "Well, this is seems like fate, you know what I mean? For to be put in a position to where they need a bass player. I just got given a bass,
Yeah,
and I did that for so long, and I just played bass for a ship that was kind of sailing itself. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Eh, And that was great, and it was fun, and I enjoyed playing bass. But like, there came a point where like I just put it down. Like I played in a few bands after IWabo, and then after that, I was just kind of like bummed out that like all of my closest friends couldn't keep their shit together enough to like, you know, enough to share ideas. It was always like someone in the band being greedy with their ideas and they're like, "No, I only want my ideas to shine through." And like me being someone who was in a international touring band for 6 years, I would just be like, "Hey, I've been through all this. I think we should do this when we market a song. I think we should do this as a plan." And it's like I was treated like, I don't know if that's a good idea." And it's like, okay. So I was just kind of like, after that, I was kind of like, I think I'm done playing music, but hauling around all this bass gear is like a pain in the ass on top of that.
hmm,
So I think that like whenever it comes to doing vocals, I was thinking more about how I just wanted to write cool lyrics and do a lot of crowd interaction. And so like someone asking me to play bass at this point, especially when I hadn't picked up my instrument for like a few years, it's like it was kind of just like I don't know if they asked me to do that opposed to be vocalist, I think it would take a little bit longer to think about it. But the thing that really got me was they were asking me to come jam as a vocalist, and I saw how tight the band was itself. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, so it's like, I don't know. It was more inviting to be like, yeah, I definitely want to front a band that sounds this tight. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So, but now, I get insecure about my own sound because this is the first time I've done the vocal thing as, just as the front man. You know what I mean?
yeah.
I've done it when I was playing in a lot of bands. I would do backing vocals and screams and stuff like that. But this is the first time I'm in charge of all the vocals, and so there's time. It's just a whole new,
Yeah.
kind of ballpark, a new kind of anxiety, a new kind of practice.
Yeah. It comes with its own anxieties and it comes with its own hurdles. Cause I mean, with bass, you gotta like, I'm sure you weren't one of those bass players that just stood there like that. I'm
Mhm.
sure you're getting down with, with the crowd and
Oh yeah,
getting jiggy with it and all the whatnot. But
oh yeah,
as a vocalist, you kind of are center stage on that. Like you're kind of like the crowd's looking at you and they're wondering what they're supposed to do, if they're supposed to be bobbing their head or
uh-huh.
getting down or so
Right.
it's kind of like a leadership role that I mean bass gives you some leeway to kind of hide, but lead vocals does not. And I guess like with that comes its own challenges. I mean, do you have like any inspirations or influences, like stuff that you look at and like, shit, I need to do this on stage? Because I used to watch At the Drive-In all the time, and Cedric and Omar, like their little noodle legs. I was like, that's it. That's the
Yeah.
money making move.
Yeah. Yeah. I uh I don't I don't have anyone specific. I know that like I used to kind of be I used to look up to Chino a lot from Deftones
Who
whenever it
wouldn't?
came. Yeah, because I mean, obviously he's awesome and he's still doing it, but
Yeah.
now I think nowadays I kind of just focus on like looking like I'm not nervous. Like I've always hated when you notice a vocalist kind of just like seems out of their element or I mean, obviously, I focus on trying to sound good too. I always worry about that because I'm always like hydrating and I'm always like trying to like during the week before we have a show, I'm like trying to just destroy my voice. So like whenever the show actually comes along, it's like I've gotten a little buildup going on, a little callus, going
It'll
on.
warm.
So
You
yeah,
gotta leather up that
yeah,
throat, the taxonomy. I know what you're
yeah.
talking.
But presence, like I said, there's just I've always just focused as a whole on like certain vocalists that you can just tell are just in the zone. I mean, obviously what you just said At the Drive-In is like one of those bands that's just they're in the zone when we're playing or when they're
All I
playing.
all I know is if I was around during that time, I'd hate to follow that. That doesn't
Yeah.
look like a fun band to follow at all.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I've always looked to Chino for inspiration, but I just every band I go to see, I pay attention. I saw Within the Ruins recently, and Steve is such a great vocalist. I'm friends with Tim, who used to be in Within the Ruins, and I ask him advice all the time. I mean, I've even asked Courtney advice, and she gives me great advice, but it's just so much different for her now because she's like in ears, big venue, big huge stadiums at this point. So it's just I don't know, I'm still getting used to it, but I'm not afraid to fucking ask questions and just try it.
That's good
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
There's people that are like not as further along in their music career that are got it in their head where they're like, can't ask questions, man. Kurt
Yeah.
Cobain did it all without even knowing music. I gotta just do it myself. And it's
Yeah.
to anyone listening, to anyone who ever stumbles upon, don't do that. Ask everybody
Yeah.
questions. If they're warm to the idea of answering a question, ask it. Because some people they don't want to share their Keebler elf magic making secrets. They don't want to.
Mm.
Some people are very close to the chest. Like that's what made me me. But if you ever meet anyone in music, even if it's like a stagehand, you know, if a good advice can come from anywhere, especially being a vocalist, because being a vocalist is tough. Because not only do you don't have to change strings on an instrument or make sure your amp head don't blow out. You got to make sure your voice doesn't
Yeah.
blow out, and you don't want to be like Sonny Moore and From First to Last in like 2006 getting vocal nodules and just not being able to do the business no more because
Mm.
you break an amp head, yeah, you just go get that replaced. It's very expensive. You break something in your throat, you're going to be on the shelf for like 6 7 months. You can't talk. You got to eat ice cream and yogurt all the time. It's a scary thing. So never be afraid to ask advice because you don't want to end up
Yeah.
plugging something up.
And I've always also like I don't think I'm naturally talented at anything. Like I'm the type of person that's always thought I'm decent at everything, but not great at any one thing. You know what I mean?
Jack of all
So
trades, master of
it,
none.
yeah. So it's the type of thing where like I know people that are naturally talented. I'm not one of them. So I have to stay asking questions and trying to improve what I'm doing and
Yeah.
staying healthy. Like
Mhm.
I know I need to be in better shape, so that's the hard part right now.
Get some weights, bro. Just start curling.
I've been doing the weights. I need more cardio. I have asthma, so it's like one of
Oh,
those
I get
things.
it.
It's like I
Well,
need to
you
just
could always, you could
sprint.
I mean, there's always alternatives to that, man. You could take Ty Bo with Billy Blanks, you know, you
Oh
could
yeah.
like high impact, short burst energy, you know, until you
Oh
build that
yeah.
stamina to go like, $6 million man to running hard as fuck down the highway. But um I think in the regards of just like staying healthy in the fitness of performance and stuff, it's important because you don't want to be gassed on stage, you don't want to be blown
Mhm.
out. But like
Yeah.
the alternative to what you said, like, you don't think you're naturally gifted. You kind of worked for it and studied at it and kind of asked questions to get you further along. On the flip side of that, like I don't mean to toot my own horn. I could just scream naturally. I just opened my
Mm.
mouth one day and then I was just screaming at church youth group, and
Hmm.
these dudes are like, "Dude, you want to be in our band?" And I was like, "Yeah." And unfortunately, being naturally able to do that stuff kind of comes with its own issues because you think you're the shit, you know you're good, you don't listen to advice, and sometimes you push yourself too far. And
Mhm.
like me as a vocalist now compared to when I was like 16, 17, there's a whole high range I can't even hit anymore because I was doing it wrong while
Mhm.
naturally loud and very like, had that distortion. There's just certain sections of my voice I can't even reach anymore. And if I do reach it, I have to do it a different way just because either the damage has been done or the way I was doing it was improper. So even trying to push that way is unhealthy. So
Mhm.
in that regard, it it's like I took a 10-year break and then it came to a point where it's like I'm relearning all this shit and I have to unlearn all these bad habits that I just thought were natural gifts.
Yeah.
And it's tough because you have to unlearn bad habits, you have to learn the good habits, and then you have to kind of just it's shitty, especially when you take like a 10-year break. But I definitely agree that you need to ask questions. You need
Yeah.
to want to be better. You
Yeah.
want to be healthy. You want to take care of yourself because rock and roll, sex, drugs, and rock and roll is not, it's not a thing no more. Unfortunately,
Oh yeah. It's now it's more it's like rock and roll and go to bed
coffee and vape.
early. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's like drink your coffee, but then you have to hydrate afterwards because it dries you out and and get your 8 hours of sleep, or you could feel like shit all day.
Yeah.
Stretch.
Like,
You
why do
have
you
to
have a headache? Did you drink your water? Did you get
yeah.
your caffeine? Did you take 8 hours of sleep? Or did you
Yeah.
take your vitamins?
Yeah. I'm gonna have to start with the vitamins.
It'd be like that sometimes.
But yeah.
So we've gushed about your music, your ability as a front man, your delicious Dutch Bros coffee. We also have that here in Arizona. That my
Awesome.
girlfriend loves that stuff.
Hell yeah.
But I think that what everybody should be talking about and wanting to know about is a hip little show called Nerding Out with Rickshaw, which I
Oh.
think more people should be watching and should, because you get in some good ass interviews. You got a great back catalog of interviews with your fellow Iwabo. I wrestled a bear once. In case you didn't know, if you hopped into this interview halfway through and you're like, "What's Iwabo?" It's I wrestled a bear once, but he's got interviews with them. You got a cool one planned for today. I don't want to. I'm trying to spoil your secrets, but I know that you've had Will Swan of Dance Gavin Dance on.
Hmm.
You've had tons of great, and it's not like this where it's just interviews and stuff. You're actually asking them their like favorite movies, favorite like music that they enjoy. It's a great show. Can you kind of tell us? Because people want to know about nerding out with Rickshaw. There's a line of people out my door asking. They're demanding.
I mean, I just think that, with like band culture, like there's not much going on. Like I think that there are things going on with like a few different people, like a few different channels. Like, you have your like Nick Nocturnals and your uh shit, I'm trying to think of more than that, but I'm spacing on it
I mean,
right
you
now.
got you got the cozy representative. You've got Finn McKenty doing the punk rock
Yep, yep.
MBA.
Ben McKenty. But it's like, even when you talk about those people, they're fun and I like watching some of their stuff, but when they do interviews, they're not like, they're not talking about. I try to think of it like this, like whenever you're on tour with certain bands, like once the show's over and all the business is done and you just maybe like smoke a bowl, what do you talk about then? And it'll be like, hey, are you guys watching that new show that just came out? Hey, you ever seen this movie? Hey, what games are you playing? And it's just becomes this thing to where it's like what you talk about when it's all finally said and done and when it's over. I remember honestly, whenever the one of the first times I thought maybe I should start a channel like that is I went to a Dance Gavin show, and I remember that after the show was over, I went on the bus and there was like some industry people hanging out, and they were, Will and uh John Mess were like, hey, like we're still hanging out with like some industry people, like give us a second and then we'll chill, once they leave. And so I sat around a little bit, just having a drink, whatever. And then I remember everyone left the bus and we went in the back, and then we you know, allegedly smoked a bowl. And they were like, and they were like, so what do you think about what's going on with like the Marvel movies, dude? And I'm like, oh shit, yeah, let's do it. And then, and then from there it was like, have you heard this new album? What do you think about like what they're doing in the comic books with this character? And and I was just like, these are the cool things I like to talk about. So from that day, I was like, I should start a channel where whenever I do an interview, it's not like the boring band stuff the whole time.
Yeah.
I know it's not boring to the normal person, but like
Yeah.
for a band, you get tired of talking about your job all the
Yeah.
time. You know what I mean?
I feel that.
So yeah, so it's like it's one of those things where sure we could talk about your new record and we could talk about the new video you just did and your tour plans, but like as the person in the band, like, I'm sure it would be cooler to just talk about stuff you like in your personal life. And then also, at this point, as a spectator, I would like to know what people in bands that I look up to, what they like to watch in their personal life, or what music they like in their personal life, or you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Things like that. Things
Kind of
that,
like the muse behind the inspiration of the creation of what they do. I
right,
get it, dude. I
right. Yeah.
Because I know you've been doing nerding out with Rickshaw. I'm pretty sure that predates pandemic. That's like 2019, 2018. You've been
2019 is when it first started, but for like 2 years, we only did like a video a week or maybe every other week or something
little
like that.
little drip fed throughout the
Yeah.
year. Just kind of
And
like I have time for this.
yeah.
Because there's definitely a more professional sheen. You guys got like the really stylized logo. You guys try to like you do clips, TikTok reels and stuff like that. Kind of like give people a little taste of your show, like the
Mhm.
full form when it's released on your YouTube channel. It's a
Right.
great channel. Everybody should definitely go check it out. Lots of great interviews, lots of good insight too. Because it's like it is about the nerd stuff, but those conversations, and I agree with you, why I like them is they kind of act like those little spring things in Sonic where they spring you to one thing to the next, because it's
Yeah.
like you're all talking about this cool thing and then it leads into another thing, but it kind of unfurls and unfolds through excitement, not
Mhm.
like it's not like somebody being like, well, I work with this guy, and then we ended up working with this guy, which is funny because I have a story about that time about the first guy that we worked with and the third guy, and it's kind of
Yeah.
like it leads like that, but it's more entertaining to watch people talk about stuff they love and enjoy,
Mhm.
because when they're talking about the guy that knew the third guy to the fourth guy, they're kind of like reciting. It'd be like, well, I went to Starbucks, I clocked in, and then it's kind of it's like you
Right.
can hear musicians when they talk about work. Unfortunately, most of it's just work, because
Mhm.
the being on stage and having great moments and the writing and the lyrics and stuff like that, that's the kind of stuff that I love to get to. But sometimes you have to get through all that boring business stuff that kind of bogs down. Like, I mean, you can kind of tell, like, there's just some bands that give it up, because it stopped being about just being on stage and then the music, because all these
Mhm.
politics get involved, all these labels get involved, all this paperwork gets involved, or it's just like, I don't want to do this shit no more.
Yeah. It's just the type of thing where like I know it's we all, we obviously all love doing music, and we all love performing and, doing all that stuff. But like, there comes a point in time where we all know what that is. We all know what that looks like. We all like, how many times can you ask someone like, so you guys playing some shows this year? Yeah. All right. Well, hey, what are all the songs about? And about it's just my art.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Can we talk about something else? You know what I mean? Like, can we talk about,
Can
yeah.
I ask you can it's just
Yeah.
it's really and
Yeah.
unfortunately because with podcasts being more popular, interviews being more
Mhm.
of a thing, and I feel like musicians are just a lot more accessible these days because your Facebook's over here, your Instagram's over there. There is a little bit of a saturation, if you will,
Mhm.
of the interview podcast market where you get a lot of people that have no business at all talking to these people, but just because they have 100, 300,000 followers, or maybe a million, who knows? You get these interviews where they're just asking, like they're kind of like reading off a Wikipedia article. It's kind of like all that surface level stuff
Mhm.
that people who go out and find these interviews that are all about finding it's like, oh, this is just like the last three, or they just read
Mhm.
questions. It's like there's no character, there's no investment, and it's just like I think interviews done by band dudes or people who are familiar with that realm of the world, who have a little more respect for it,
Right.
who have kind of more of a realistic view of it, tend to get the more interesting
Yeah.
videos and interviews, and they have the better questions. Because I can't tell you how many interviews I've watched where it's just by numbers. This is just a standard, like
Mhm.
they're just going over everything that the last four interviews went over. And it's like, come on, man, just ask him if he likes like Pokemon or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly, dude. Yeah, I like, even when it comes to like, no one wants to like, say that you're just like the normal Joe Schmo interviewer for like this or that website, and you do an interview and they're like, what's some cool tour stories, and it's like, from the context of not knowing the person you're interviewing with at all, it's like, how am I supposed to come up with, I'm supposed to just crap out a tour story that happened for a guy I don't even know. And it's like, we're not even talking about a specific subject. So like, even whenever we get into tour stories on my channel, it's like a little more like what we're already riffing on. And
Mm-hmm.
like they and most of the time, like 80% of the people I've interviewed at this point know me from before, just from
Yeah.
touring and stuff. So it like, you get the more personal tour story, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, from the context of, we're all funny dudes who used to go drinking together, and sometimes you get the tour story that's like, so and so is gonna hate me for telling this story to you, but I'm gonna tell it because you know him, so it's like, those are the things
He
I
could he could
want
be
to
mad
hear.
at both of us now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's just one of those things where like, I try to take that approach. It's like, me, you know, are you comfortable telling me all these nerdy things, all these personal tour stories, things like that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just so
I felt it, dude. Because I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, I had never planned on doing podcasts. I had never planned on doing interviews. The Demo Team podcast, which is I believe where we met. I think we met
oh
through a
yeah.
Facebook group, MySpace Revival or something like that. And it was just like, hi, I'm the bass player of Iwabo, and I'm just like,
Yeah, I think you were posting about
yeah.
Iwabo at one point, and I got invited to do like three different like podcasts that month. And so whenever you were posting about Iwabo, I was like, and the Demo Team podcast was posting about Iwabo, I was like, hey, I used to be in Iwabo. You want to do an interview with me? Yay. So
Yeah, because I remember you had Phantom Figures. I think Phantom Figures had just started. Like you had
yeah,
just like one music video, maybe two music videos out, and you're just
right.
kind of like, hey, I'm an old school band dude. How do I
Yeah.
get attention for this music? Oh yeah, you go and do a bunch of interviews. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, for sure, dude. And I like, I don't mind doing any interviews, honestly. I know some people that are just like, ugh, no, I don't want to do an interview, dude. And it's like, but I'm like, dude, get me out there, bro. I'll talk about anything.
Hell
So,
yeah.
I bartend and shit. So it's like, get me on the right subject, no matter who you are, and I could talk forever about it. So,
Yeah, you can just shoot the shit for hours. I'm sort of the same way.
yeah,
I'm weird because sometimes I don't like being sociable. I like being in the corner, kind of
yeah.
just minding
I
my
mean,
own business and stuff. But you put
I'm
me in
in,
like a show setting, you put
yeah.
me at a festival. I'm most social. I'm everyone's
Oh, yeah.
best friend. But when I'm at home, I'm at McDonald's or I'm at the DMV. I'm somewhere I don't want to interact. I don't want to interact. I don't interact. And there are
Yeah.
some days where I'm just like, I don't feel like doing an interview. And then once I hit that record button, it's just
Yeah. I mean, I'm an extrovert introvert, so it's like I feel like I personally just feel like it's my business to conversate and and have a good time. And when I meet people that are like all closed up, I'm gonna get you, dude. I'm gonna get you out of that shell, dude. We need
I,
like we're gonna be friends. But then I at the end of a long week, I'm like, I cannot wait to go home and just sit alone and allegedly smoke.
allegedly. But I get that 100%.
Yeah.
Have you ever had that happen in an interview though? Have you ever scheduled an interview with somebody and you get like a wallflower or like, someone who's extremely introverted but understands they need to do this interview because they
Yeah.
need prep, but they're kind of just like,
Yeah. I think and this is I'm pretty good friends with this guy, Brian, who he used to play in the Chariot, and he is in Slow Rider. Have you ever heard the band Slow Rider?
take it easy.
No, it's a fun, like I said, he was the oh, he's also in
I mean, I've heard of the
like
Chariot. You
yeah,
already
yeah.
got me. I already know what
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
talking about.
I can't remember his new band, but it's like called shit. I can't tell you right now. Anyways, but yeah, Brian, who used to play guitar in the Chariot, I knew him on tour, and we would go out and do a bunch of stuff and have beers and stuff. But I remember I interviewed him one time for the show, and I was like trying to get anything I could out of him because he'd be like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah," and I'd be like, "Okay, what else can we talk about to get you going?" So I think,
I've been there, dude. I've
yeah,
been
those are
there.
the
I've had
times
some
where it's like,
interviews.
yeah,
And it's like I've had interviews. I know the people. I've talked to them. We usually text and we have a phone call. It's all fine, but for some reason, like you put that interview, that podcast, like
yeah,
shade on it, and then all of
mhm,
a sudden they're just
yeah.
yeah,
I think that some people really they just can't, like, as soon as you tell them, all right, we're recording, or oh, this is gonna be online or whatever, they just have this like, okay. And then
deer
you
in the
as
headlights,
yeah,
social
as
anxiety, and
soon
it's
as
just
you
like
hit stop though, you'll be like, all right, we stopped. And they're like, how was that? Was it good? What have you been up to? And I'm like, what?
fuck you.
Where was this? Where was this? So
No, I had an interview one time. It was like an hour long interview and it took to the 45-minute mark and then they
mhm.
just it finally the ice broke. I was like
Yeah, there you go.
couldn't have done this half an hour ago when we had like 45 minutes to go.
Yeah,
Those last
but
15 minutes though, that was the best part of the interview.
yeah, just I mean, it takes that particular subject, so, that's I guess that's where I try to like before I go, if I don't know the person I'm interviewing, I try to at least give them a little like insight to what we're doing. So I'll be like, can you let me know of anything that like really you love to nerd out on? And I've had people be like, I don't know, man. I'm not really nerdy. And I'm like, I'm not even using it as like nerdy. I'm using it as like you as a person love something so much,
You're
and
a fan.
yeah, and like people think you're weird for it. And I remember Dave from We Came as Romans was like, well, I like rock climbing a lot. And I was like, all right, let's go. Let's use that, and he talked about rock climbing for like 20, 30 minutes. And I was like, hell yeah, dude, that's what
See?
I'm talking about. Like, find what you want to nerd out about. So,
Yeah, that's what's up. See, you get the formula. The formula, it's patented, it's in a bottle. Nerding out with Rickshaw, take one sip, and then you're nerding out, bro.
yeah. I mean, I've also, thought about, myself like, is that the right title for the channel? But because we mainly talk about music, but it's just look within. What is nerdy in your heart, Because
Look within with Rickshaw.
it's like it's not even we don't even talk about that much actual nerd stuff.
Yeah.
Even though I love comic books and comic book movies and video games and stuff, it's like we never fully land on those because
And
everyone.
technically, you're not even hitting on the old school definition of nerd. You're not wearing big glasses. You don't have a book. You're not
Right.
studying. You're
I
not
don't have
doing
no
extra
pocket
credit.
no pocket protector.
You messed up, dude. You got a whole. I'm sure there's a whole demographic of fans that are just waiting for you to pull out the pocket. They're like, this show is called Nerding Out with Rickshaw. He's gonna talk about it eventually.
Yeah, dude. Revenge of the Nerds. Hell
There
yeah.
you
That's
go. You need a whole episode dedicated to that poorly aged franchise.
dude, I love Revenge of the Nerds. It's the first one for sure.
Nerds!
Nerds.
It's the most appropriate reaction to nerds. If you don't have that sound clip, which I think we should talk about that because I think there's like almost 400 people in a Facebook group that somehow between me and yourself we made an I Wrestled a Bear Once fan group to kind of shine light on the those fans that are just a little disgruntled and don't know where to go these days. But it's also a Facebook group dedicated to Imperial Lights, Phantom Figures. It takes 30 days, but I'm going to add, you gotta get that new one, dude.
Yeah.
You gotta keep
Yeah.
everybody on the informed. But sound clips were something that I Wrestled a Bear Once did. And there was a certain section of, MySpace core that enjoyed throwing comedy, action, drama. It didn't really matter. If it was a movie that was popular in the 90s or early 2000s, they found their way into music. Now, I
Mhm.
know that you came into I Wrestled a Bear Once when they were still doing that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you have any insight on why, for a certain amount of time, we just kept throwing movie clips on our music?
I mean, like, I don't really know why, but I think that back then versus now, uh, people just it was the type of thing where like band dudes like to sit around and say, what if we did this? What if we did that? What if we put a sound clip in there? What if we named a song this? And it was always real stupid. You know what I mean? Like, but it was the kind of special stupid that you shared with your friends.
Yeah.
And I think that back then versus now, we would be like, hell yeah, we're naming a song that. You know what I mean? Hell yeah, we're naming a song Alaskan Flounder Basket because I went to Long John Silver's the other day and that was my shit. You know what I mean? And like now everyone's so serious.
Yeah.
And I know that, when you do an album with a label, it's hard to get sound clips in there and stuff like that, but it seems like we've lost a lot of the fun. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
that comes with being creative and
Which
how.
is weird
Yeah.
because so many people utilize memes to try to get their band across, but it becomes like a separation of persona. Because I wrestled a bear once, and bands like that, like I would say like Dr. Acula as well, where
Yep.
it's kind of like your humor was like on your sleeve. Like that's who we are, dog. Like that's it's
Hmm.
not just on the t-shirt, it's just not on the band page, it's in the
Yeah.
music.
But I also think that there's something about the general public that only likes you to be a certain way. Like this is how I've always thought of Iwabo failing, right? It was like us doing our own thing, acting however we wanted to act, doing dumb videos, and it's like it could only get us so far. But the people that are out there creating of like, and I hate to say it like this, but it's like a fake image, like creating a fake image, giving off a certain vibe on your like this persona who you are, and writing standard song titles, and you know what I mean, and it's like the general public wants you to just be a standard kind of thing. They don't want you to be wacky. They don't want you to be goofy. They don't want you to, like you could only go so far being that because the general public just has this idea of what they want their favorite band to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
It's like the facade of being easily digestible for the masses,
yes,
because
exactly.
unfortunately, and I mean, I'm sure some people know this, but you know, musicians don't make a lot of money, and
Mhm.
if you want to be super successful and in the mainstream on Sirius XFM, or you want to be making those big bucks playing, state fairs for like half the continent, the half the county, you kind of have to be easily digestible, which is kind of just
Mhm.
like, well, you don't want to be too offensive, you don't want to be too weird, you don't want to be too odd, you want to be the image of cool, or the image of sexy, or the image of rustic cowboy for the country fans out there. Like,
Right.
if you found out your favorite cowboy singer was actually like polishing Nissans on the weekend, maybe you wouldn't want to listen to his music as much.
My favorite one that has kind of broke through and has become an image that like people do like is a spooky cowboy. Like, you know what I mean? Like we have some Rob
That's basically
Zombie.
me. I'm pretty sure you've seen me wear my cowboy hat enough.
Yeah, you are in the spooky cowboy category. But like, like
Like, I love Beetlejuice,
he
and I
is
love that scene in
legend.
Beetlejuice where he's dressed up like a cowboy, and I was just like, that's me. It's only 30 seconds of the movie, but that's my persona now.
Yeah, like we got like Rob Zombie, he is legend. Johnny Depp, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
spooky cowboy.
I
It's
love that
there.
you mentioned he is legend and Rob Zombie in the same sentence,
Yeah.
because I love Skylar Croom. I'm supposed to interview this dude one day. We're in a promised like handhold,
Uh-huh.
but the fact that he has especially the last few He Is Legend records, definitely feel like more akin to like White Zombie, Rob Zombie, and the fact that they've been taking like real big steps to like improve like their film work, like for the music videos and stuff, to try to like do that, because like Skylar is a huge like Rob Zombie, White Zombie fan, and he
Nice.
loves movies, he likes doing movies and stuff like that. And I always loved when musicians just kind of wear that spooky cowboy, like to be
Oh yeah.
themselves unashamedly. Like, it's like, wow, that guy really looks like Macho Man Randy Savage walked through a graveyard. It's like, fuck yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly what he wants to be.
It's like you have different eras of Macho Man too that you could be, like
Oh yeah.
everyone. Lots of
Who
people
doesn't
are
want to
like,
be Macho Man? You just don't want to be domestic problems Macho Man. That's the only thing.
yeah, that's true. But I think more people are down with the NWO Macho Man. You know what I
Dude,
mean? Like wearing
his
all the black.
bandana would go into his sunglasses. You know how like on fleek, like that dude had style. Like, he was just, it was all on purpose. Nothing was on accident. I watched the
Right.
Macho Man biography the other day, so I was like super stoked.
Nice. All right, dude.
Dude, he was also in Spider Man, fucking Macho Man,
Oh yeah. Three
the first
minutes.
one.
Three
Three
minutes of
minutes,
playtime.
3 minutes of playtime. Oh, yeah. And then he
Love
followed
that.
that up with a rap album.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Who could forget the Macho Man rap? The diss track to Hulk Hogan. Who could forget? It's
That's good.
horrible. But I know you have about 5 minutes until you got to go do something really, really cool. I don't want to spoil your secret. I mean, if you want to, that's up to you.
I mean, yeah. When is this gonna come out?
Um, I interviewed John Candy, which if you've never heard of the John Candy, the band,
Oh
you
yeah.
should go check them out
Oh
because
yeah.
they're
We
basically doing IWabo in 2023. They've been doing it for like almost 10 years now, but they still have sound clips. They
Mhm.
everything is sampled and everything is
I
just awesome.
I've just
But
I've heard of them, but we went down the John Candy rabbit hole a little bit in the past couple of days. So yeah.
definitely I couldn't explain it when I first saw it. My girlfriend showed it to me and I had heard the name and I listened to it, but I didn't really pay attention. I was like, oh, this sounds like cool. I didn't realize it was all samples. I didn't realize
Yeah.
everything was just a little pitch shift. And then like all the music videos are just kind of like, wow, I guess people do still have a sense of humor in
Yeah.
2023. It's great. But what you have planned, I don't want to. This comes out. I got to do that episode first, and then this will come out after. There's not much editing to be done because I don't think anything we said needs to be omitted. And you'd probably be out. Let's see, what's today? Wednesday.
Mhm.
I could probably get this out by the weekend.
Okay. Well, either way, yeah, we're gonna have the guitarist for It Dies Today on the show. And I mean, I'm a huge It Dies Today fan, so
I mean,
I,
we kind of like a lot of second, third generation screamo guys and metalcore bros and noodly breakdown guys. We kind of owe it to those first round draft picks of the early
mhm.
2000s, mid 2000s that kind of
Yep.
paved the way for us. So I'm super stoked for you, dude. That's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, those guitar tones, even back in the day, were like so heavy, dude.
You're about to be doing the. You're about to be nerding out about tones, bro.
Oh
Hell
yeah,
yeah, dude. I
but
don't
yeah,
want to, I know you got like, that was at 4:30. I thank you so much, Michael, for your time. If you want to shout out your social medias real quick so people can go follow you on such and such.
yeah. Add me on Instagram. It is I hate ghosts with an S at the end. Nerding out with Rickshaw. We have a YouTube. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, Instagram, also on there. Never Rest. You should go check out Never Rest Instagram or YouTube. Never Rest Texas on Instagram or Never Rest TX. Um, what else? I think that's all I got. You could add me on Facebook if you want, Michael Martin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and I guess I should just ask because everyone's gonna probably ask me this. Does I wrestle at Bear Once have a chance of ever coming back? We
Mm. Did I'm gonna say probably not.
probably not.
I'm gonna say probably not because okay, so part of the reason that we broke up was Steven kind of started gaslighting us, and he's the one that's in charge of all of the, social medias, all that stuff. There was a point in time where, we were talking about money, and he just kind of like rubbed us the wrong way, and that's kind of why the band broke up. So, if there ever was any offers for us to get back together and play a show, they would go straight to Steven, and that was part of the reason everybody was kind of like, I'm kind of done, so it's hard to fix the problem, if he's
Lots
the
of
one.
red tape.
Yeah,
There's lots of webs.
if
I
he's
think,
he's the one holding all the cards and everyone else left that, you know what I
yeah.
mean? So
I mean, I knew that already.
yeah.
You told me that a few years
Yeah,
back. I'm sure I'm going to be asked that question no matter how many times.
yeah,
I'm sure you're still asked that
yeah,
question.
yeah, I
Yeah.
am, but it
I don't like to pry. I don't like to,
yeah.
I'm sure if Iwabo came back, maybe it wouldn't involve y'all. It would, there's a lot of those bands running around right now where they don't have any of the original members. They got that
Yeah.
one dude that started it.
Mhm.
I attacked a bear. But
I personally would love to see that happen, but there has to be a lot of healing and growth on his part.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no hard feelings towards him if he ever made it right. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so that's
But
where I'm at.
but you're just one person.
Yep.
There's a whole other band. And if anyone's ever been on Wikipedia, I'm sure I wrestled a bear once. His former member sheet. It's kind of long.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't like to pry. It's 4:30, Michael. Thank you so much for your time. You have a great day. Thank you for listening to Warp Taste Podcast. Y'all have a lovely day. Goodbye, Mike.
Later. See you later, nerds.
Mm.
All right. Thanks.